Alright, today let's jump back into the Bitcoin price action, talk about this dump we had and why we could have expected it and why I believe we are still bullish and we are still likely to hold the 58,250 low. And not only does Bitcoin look pretty good, but the S&P broke into all-time highs once again, so we'll cover that as well. Also, you might notice I got some fibs down here at the low. If you know my strategy, you might know what these fibs are for, and if we go over here to BingX, you can see exactly what I went ahead and did. Entered a little bit of a demo trade, and real quickly, I'm partnered with BingX. We still got that event going on, so check the links in the description down below to learn more about that. So yeah, clearly I am very bullish on Bitcoin right now, and let's talk about why I took this position and what were the confluences used for it. So first things first, let's zoom out and talk about this dump in a whole. Why did we have this dump? How could it have been predicted? And as I've been talking about in my videos, we've had these two big CME gaps. These are levels in the chart that price gets attracted to, so it made sense to come down and fill them before heading on up. And it's actually more bullish to come down and fill this stuff, remove those inefficiencies in the charts before grabbing topside liquidity, and that is exactly what we did. As we've been talking about, our big level to watch out for is up here above 64,500 at these big liquidity levels. A bearish retest up here after grabbing all of that short liquidity is more worrying and could potentially mark a macro retracement for Bitcoin before rolling over into the bear market. But the fact we did not get up there and we front ran it, falling just on the trend of this channel, tells me they are saving this upper level for later and just flushing out longs before that move to the upside in the future, which is very bullish in my opinion. You could assume they are taking out all of these long positions because they don't want them to just be in the markets if we are going to move up to all-time highs. So it could be telling us that, hey, since we're having this bullish correction now, filling those CME gaps, cleaning out the levels, that this next move up could potentially be very structurally good, and we could go ahead and squeeze past these liquidity levels and actually go for that all-time highs, and this is still absolutely my base case. But yeah, essentially the secondary CME gap fill was one of my main confluences for the long. It was also a Fibonacci level from swing low, swing high. I didn't really use this to take the position, but nice to know we are still holding the fibs within this 786 to golden pocket. You know, as long as we're holding this box within here is what you want to see on a bullish correction, so that's good to take note of. And while we don't have the volume confluence like we did back up these other levels, we do have a structural level, which would have been this sweep of this low. You could see when we made this first low, it was a good sweep structure originally up above these two levels here, so that was a very good confluence. You know, you could have taken a long on swing low, swing high, golden pocket here, right? You could have definitely entered a long here, but what I saw was a bunch of positions kind of jumping into the market preemptively, telling you that this was likely to break down and we were actually going to squeeze out all of those positions and make a sweep structure of this secondary level within here. And because each of these previous volume levels didn't really work out and we were just failing consistently at each of our previous levels, I wanted to be patient on this, let it finally take out all those long positions, and we did go ahead and sweep this lower level once again. And I think finally we do have a very good case to say that was the low and all of the liquidity to the downsides has been hunted. And my biggest confluence I actually used for the secondary sweep was the fact that when we came down here, we made an hourly bullish divergence. This is one of my favorite confluences to use. I never really want to enter trades without that RSI bull div, at least a CVD bull div at a minimum, right? So we did get this very nice hourly bull div along with a 30-minute bull div as well. Both of these time frames are really good for those RSI divergences. So that's another indication that's going to be your low, and an even bigger confluence for the long position. And why I felt comfortable marketing in is because if we go look at our order flow here on Trading Light. First off, I'm in the TPO session right now, so you can see this is a very good low. The amount of single print tails that were at the bottom of that wick, this is very clean and there's no reason to come back down and grab that later on. But what I want to look at is our footprint chart, so let's go ahead and jump over here to look at that. And you can see that when we came down to make this sweep structure, we had a very clean failed auction as well. Hundreds of Bitcoin being shorted at the Pico low of this candle compared to the non-existent buyers, and price was able to bounce off of that level, showing that the auction for lower prices had failed and a retrace back up to reclaim that sweep level was likely. Also, you can see within here lots of order book support, so that's good to see as well. Not only do we have all of those confluences, but we also have the S&P breaking into all-time highs, which we'll talk about in a second. But first, I don't want to give just a complete bullish bias here. I do want to say there is a possibility we go down lower, right? We have a big volume levels below us, bigger sweep level below us. So, you know, there is still the case for a bullish correction down to here, and then there's also the case that, you know, we just enter the bear market because there's no buyers left on Bitcoin. And while I don't think those scenarios are quite likely at all, they are still possible, so I don't want to say they're not. And if we were to actually have that pullback lower, where could we look for resistance? And well, jumping back over here to trading light, we have those single prints up higher. So this, you know, again, inefficiencies in the chart could act as resistance. Got some sellers up here as well within this level, you know, where their seller imbalances were from previous wicks within here. So this is kind of the big level to be watching for. Can we reclaim the 61,900 level, you know, get above these inefficiencies and get above those seller imbalances, turning it into support? But assuming we can do that, I still think we're going to kind of magnet up here to these higher liquidity levels, and what we're seeing at these liquidity levels is pretty good as far as the order book is concerned, because we had talked about these big sell walls up here, you know, to be cautious when we do come up to these sweep levels, because there's a lot of sellers looking to take positions up here. Well, these sellers have moved out of the order book. I'm assuming these are market makers that were using those walls to actually spoof price down. We had talked about how this wall was a spoof wall because it added on at the highs before getting filled to push price down, and it seems like they were able to go ahead and push price all the way down to these lows that we're at right now with these spoof walls. You can see them kind of just adding to positions at the highs without them getting filled to just go ahead and push price all the way down to likely fill long positions, kind of where we are right now. But once again, it's all just probabilities. My stop's already at entry, so I can't lose on this position. I'm not saying to enter in right now. That's not great risk to reward when it comes to leverage. So yeah, overall, I do think Bitcoin looks pretty decent right now. Certainly is still kind of sign of weakness in this area right here. You know, the fact that we're not just pushing up through all-time highs, flipping down to support already, and we are coming down to test this stuff again, kind of a sign of weakness, and is another thing leading me on to believing it is just going to be like short squeeze up into that Wyckoff up thrust after distribution before that final top does come in and we do roll over up here around the September timeframe is kind of what I'm aiming for at the moment. But I will change my thesis day by day depending on how price reacts, all of that stuff. There's even the possibility, you know, we just come up here, roll over, or go to six figures, right? There's a lot of possibilities, and it's all just probabilities. But so far, so good on Bitcoin. We had planned for these lower CME gaps to get filled, and it's really not surprising at all that we did come all the way down here for a bullish correction. But let's talk about the S&P, because we were shooting off into all-time highs once again, and I do believe we have entered the final phase of the parabola, that final angle of attack that should send us completely vertical until lights go out, meaning the macro top for the S&P on this insane parabola we have been forming all the way since 1964. We had talked about this a little bit in the Discord today. If you look at the S&P on a monthly time frame, you can see this is a macro parabola. These are actually from a video I did on indicators that are pointing towards a great recession. Those are all vertical lines marking out bearish divergences, so make sure to go check that video out if you can find it on my channel. But look at this thing, all the way since the 1950s has been the formation of a giant parabola that is in the last phase of the parabola, in my opinion, and I do believe we are going to have a quick blow off top potentially as soon as this summer or election season. I don't really know if this lasts all the way into 2025, 2026. I think it's going to happen sooner than later, probably around when the Fed cuts, you know, a couple months before or after, somewhere in that window. And then when this thing turns around and starts coming down, I think it'll be pretty bad, and we could see the next Great Depression 2.0 maybe coming all the way back down to these 2008 highs, level down within here. I think that's a very probable place for price to go. I know obviously, you know, coming all the way back down to the lows doesn't make any sense because of inflation, but certainly a full rotation to 2008 highs is not out of the question at all. And along with this, we're probably going to see some other catalysts such as world wars, civil strifes, a whole bunch of stuff that could potentially happen in the future. But once again, we're just going to take stuff day by day. I just want to point this out that the S&P is looking like it's going on that final rally before it all rolls over. And in this time period, I do think we could see a lot of euphoria in the market. And it's another catalyst for me thinking that Bitcoin is going to break all-time highs, because if this truly is the top of like the roaring 20s 2.0, and we're about to enter the Great Depression 2.0, well, you're probably going to see the most speculative assets run at the top, which would of course be crypto. And along with the S&P making all-time highs, we of course have the dollar coming down, which is another great thing for Bitcoin Bitcoin and another reason why I believe the chart's probably bottomed right now. Assuming the dollar continues to trend down, I find it hard to believe that Bitcoin would also trend down. We should see risk on assets start running within this pullback here on the dollar. And the big question we got to ask is, are we going to find support at the 104 level once again? You know, this macro range that we've been in since kind of the beginning of 2023, or can we flip this into resistance and go all the way down to the 100 level? That is yet to be seen, but I would say in scenario 1 is where you get up thrust after distribution Wyckoff schematic for Bitcoin. Look that up if you don't know what I'm talking about. And in scenario 2, we see 6 figures on Bitcoin, where we could go to 100 to 300, $350,000 on the Bitcoin price. And if you look historically, this can happen very fast, so I wouldn't rule that out of the question at all, that we could get some sort of blow off top into 6 figures by the end of 2024, still within that left translated cycle theory, although I'm completely open to the idea of a more super cycle going into 2025 that would not be left translated, but the S&P would need to continue going up, and I just don't think the parabola here is quite going to last that long. But again, we'll just have to take stuff day by day and kind of decipher the charts as they come. And then finally, I guess we'll cover the altcoins real quick. We do see dominance coming up. You know, altcoins are losing strength against Bitcoin, but we are still under this daily EMA. So let's see if we can get this to kind of roll over once again and see our altcoin season into that most speculative time of the markets during this S&P blow off top. And if Bitcoin dominance is to continue up here, let's see if it is just because Bitcoin is ripping to the upside one last time, and potentially when Bitcoin does top out is when we will see the altcoins resume their strength while Bitcoin distributes once again. So we'll be keeping an eye on the Bitcoin dominance. The altcoin market is, you know, once again at a very critical level, but this is nothing too scary because we're still holding the wicks very nicely. If we go over here to like an hourly time frame and pull swing low, swing high, I believe this is probably going to be our golden pocket, right? Yeah, we're still within kind of this golden pocket for the altcoin market, so having a correction down to this level isn't the worst thing in the world. Hourly bull div, just like Bitcoin, sweeping all of these lows within here doesn't look too bad at all, and I would expect the altcoin market to start coming up here along with Bitcoin. So yeah, pretty bullish on Bitcoin right now for the day, but data changes fast, so we'll make sure to stay vigilant in the markets, especially when we do have that potential Great Depression ahead of us. But as of right now, so far so good. So if you have any questions about anything I talked about, or just want to join the community for this channel, make sure to join my Discord. Link is in the description down below. Also running that event with BingX. You can find links to that down below as well. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.